Breakfast a little time ago. You're looking right now at a live shot down at the Cape. The astronauts had breakfast. At least 3 of them had breakfast, and the other 3 astronauts really had lunch. You're looking now at that videotape. Hank, what was this, about 3 hours ago?
That was about 4 hours ago, I guess now, John.
And of course, they're inside the spaceship now, ready to go. Now we see them going out to their rather elaborate bus. And there, again, a shot of the Space Shuttle Columbia. And that is the commander. That is astronaut John Young, the commander. He has been up, I guess, in space more than any other American, hasn't he, Hank?
That's right. This be his 6th flight. John's an old pro.
And he's 53 years old, and he was quoted the other day saying this would probably be his last. He says the eyes and other things are keeping in shape. He said it's a little harder every time to try to keep up with the rigorous physical training and to pass those physical examinations. As you see our clock there, about 5.5 minutes before our expected launch at the Cape. There was a problem with some weather down there. You perhaps heard overnight and even yesterday. They're worried about a big weather front that was moving in across the upper part of the state of Florida. That situation, the last we heard, had cleared up a good bit. We have our science correspondent, Robert Bazell, down at Cape Canaveral this morning. He has been intimately involved in this space program. And, Bob, what's the weather now? Are we all clear? It looks beautiful behind you there.
It is beautiful. It's cloudy here, but Bob Crippen, the astronaut, has been flying a test plane through the clouds, and he's determined that the clouds present no problem. It's also a bit breezy, as you can probably see. That, too, is no danger. The storm that they were worried about, the thunder showers, they're in Florida, but they're west of here, and they're not going to move in. The one thing that has happened in the last few minutes is that the launch window that was already short, 14 minutes, has been shortened to 9 minutes.
Sure, at the Kennedy Space Center. Shuttle 9 is about to lift off, carrying a 16-ton scientific laboratory with the largest crew ever to launch. 2 of them not astronauts, 1 of them not an American.
ABC News presents Scientific Journey, the Flight of Spacelab. Live coverage of today's launch of Columbia.
Good afternoon. Good morning, rather. It is a far more beautiful morning here in Florida than NASA had reason to expect. But a cold front that they were afraid would delay this morning's launch has in fact cooperated, and Columbia is ready to go. It's a little bit overcast here now, but it's perfectly okay for a launch for Columbia's first return to space in more than a year. Joining us now at the Johnson Space Center in Houston are colleagues Jules Bergman and Gene Cernan. Gene, this Space Lab gives the space program a whole new direction, doesn't it?
Things certainly have changed, Lynn, with the return of Columbia to space here this morning with its sophisticated Space Lab payload. We are certainly taking some definitive and meaningful steps in international cooperation. Here we can look at Columbia. She sits on a pad ready for her 6th journey into space, along with, I might say, the 6th journey of John Young.
Okay, Gene, thanks. And with almost 2 minutes to go more than 2 minutes to go before the launch, Jules Bergman, why don't you tell us something about this 6-man crew?
Craft. At 53, John Young, the commander, will be making his 6th flight into space. He commanded the first shuttle flight after earlier flying 2 Gemini and 2 Apollo missions, including Apollo 16, which took him to the moon. The only other crew member to have flown in space, mission specialist Owen Garriott, also 53, flew aboard Skylab 10 years ago. When not involved in Space Lab's experiments, Garriott plans to use a ham radio in his spare time to contact other hams on Earth. Also on this flight is NASA's first non-American space traveler, West Germany's Ulf Merbold, a 42-year-old...
Main engine at 1 minute. T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds, and counting. Everything going very well. T-minus 1 minute, 15 seconds. The liquid hydrogen tank now at flight pressure. Coming up on the 1 minute point, and the firing system for the sound suppression water system is armed. T-minus 1 minute and counting. The hydrogen igniters under the orbiter's engines have now been armed, These devices are used to ensure that any hydrogen flowing through the engines prior to ignition does not accumulate. T-minus 45 seconds. 14 seconds away from switching to the onboard computers. The Spacelab countdown is now complete. Coming up on the 30-second point, and we go for auto sequence start. The SRB hydraulic power units have started. These move the solid motor nozzles to steer the vehicle. T-minus 20 seconds. 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10. We have go for main engine start. 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 3, 2, 1. Solid motor ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia and the first flight of the European Space Agency Spacelab. The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll. Vehicle rolling from tail south around 235 degree azimuth northeast. Roger. Altitude 1111. All APUs running at 106% of RPM. Distance 1 mile, 2.7 nautical miles altitude. Five miles altitude. Roger.
And control of the shuttle has now switched over to Houston, and I should tell you that there was a tremendous roar and vibration in our booth here in Florida. I don't know if it was the weight of the Spacelab or what, but it was really something.
Columbia, Houston, your go at throttle up. Throttling up from 85%.
Columbia is traveling along the East Coast, and Brewster Shaw is going to get a terrific view out of his window. This is something that no shuttle astronaut has ever seen before because their inclination is slightly different. They are traveling north right now.
13 miles altitude, 10 miles downrange. Each of the three fuel cells producing 7.8, 7.2, and 7.2 kilowatts, respectively.
Because of the cloud cover here in Florida, we have now lost it for visual sighting from the ground. Obviously, you can still see it with the tracking camera.
4,163.
We're about 10 seconds from the SRB SEP. It's quite possible a number of people along the coast will be able to see that.
Yes, they're so close to the east coastline, Gene.